U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken finally unveiled Joe Biden's China strategy. Yes, it is softer in tone if you compare it to, for example, Mike Pence's Hudson Institute address, when I was actually there in Washington, D.C., or to Mike Pompeo's McCarthyistic speech at the Nixon Library, which honestly looked more like a campaign rally from a Republican primary. But anyway, here is Antony Blinken.
We are not looking for conflict or a new Cold War. To the contrary, we're determined to avoid both.
But let's not be naive. Substance is more important than the tone. Though stopping short of using the phrase the new Cold War, Antony Blinken did outline a U.S. foreign policy that divides the world into blocs and alliances, and China is the target of it all. Listen to this.
So, we will shape the strategic environment around Beijing to advance our vision for an open, inclusive international system. The Quad has held 4 summits. We're reinvigorating our cooperation with ASEAN, with the new security partnership between Australia, the United Kingdom, and the United States, known as AUKUS, including by inviting Asian allies to the NATO summit in Madrid next month.
If he looks like a duck, swims like a duck, and quacks like a duck, then he probably is a duck. The Biden administration is building a China containment alliance that's reminiscent of the Western bloc of the Cold War era. With a realist twist, Blinken rallied support primarily on ideology, painting China as an undemocratic and illiberal society, and therefore its growing economic and military power is to be feared. Are you having a deja vu moment? In 1947, then U.S. President Harry Truman gave an address outlining what was later known as the Truman Doctrine. That marked the start of the Cold War against the former Soviet Union. Now, if you compare Blinken's speech to Truman's speech, you will be amazed at the similarities.
That totalitarian regimes imposed upon free peoples by direct or indirect aggression.
The ruling Chinese Communist Party has become more aggressive abroad.
One of the primary objectives of the foreign policy of the United States is the creation of conditions in which we and other nations will be able to work out a way of life free from coercion.
Our task is to prove once again that democracy advances human dignity, that the future belongs to those who believe in freedom, and that all countries will be free to chart their own paths without coercion.
Well, there are painful lessons from the Cold War, isn't it? The start of it had a lot to do with the ideological fervor to exploit a perceived threat instead of an existential danger. Yes, there was this expanding Soviet sphere of influence, the Korean War, the Vietnam War, the Cuban Missile Crisis, but how many of these proxy conflicts started after hostile rhetoric was articulated first and therefore became a self-fulfilling prophecy? And now, after decades of globalization, a world divided into blocks of we versus they is even more dangerous because the common stakes of countries and economies are exponentially higher. There are a lot of contradictions in Blinken's speech too. He said countries in the Indo-Pacific are free to make their own decisions, but who rushed their top Asia diplomats to the Solomon Islands when the island country was about to sign a security agreement with China? And Blinken also said,
"This is not about forcing countries to choose, it's about giving them a choice."
Then what kind of infrastructure project did America offer its Eurasian partners when Washington couldn't even pass its domestic infrastructure bill to fix broken roads and bridges? Now, foreign policy starts at home. With midterm elections on the horizon, looking tough on China is the first order of business. A lot of Blinken's talking points were directed at the domestic U.S. audience, for example, when he talked about helping American steelworkers. Let's hope the natural pole of the common interests of the two societies, China and the United States, will overcome the man-made forces that push them apart. After all, history shows that most of the people on both sides are better served when the two countries have a constructive partnership.